Hello, Partho.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Um, so this is a new podcast series that we want to start, and when we talk about humanity and human future, one of the most important factors is how is the next generation coming up? How are we raising our kids? Because they are the future. Whatever we are doing impacts them directly. How they learn, how they grow, how they study, how they evolve, etc. And one of the challenges we see in today's world is that that's being done not very mindfully. The kids are being raised in a very mechanical way, just focused on academics and cramming, and not true development of the next generation as it could happen. And schools will do what they will do, but one of the things we as individuals, adults, can try and do is learn about better parenting, learn about how to be better ourselves and how we can impart this to our next generation. So with that, in that context, one of our dear friends, Puneet, and you had been discussing, and some of our other common friends are trying to make a platform for community parenting,
Right.
in which we can share some insights, some ideas, some evolve as a group and see how the platform can help everyone be better parents, be better themselves, and then most importantly,
Right.
impart, help the kids learn, grow, evolve better. So in that context, I would like you to introduce this concept, that what does community parenting mean? What does this platform, what can this platform do? What is the problem that we are trying to address? And then after that, maybe we'll get into some specific use cases to give a glimpse for any audience who's watching to see what kinds of problems or potential we will attempt to bring through this platform. So how do you look at this problem, and how do you feel we should solve it in today's world?
Main thing is to acknowledge to ourselves that we have a problem here.
Yeah.
And it's not just to do with parenting. Parenting is an expression, or rather a symptom of something that's wrong much deeper down. It's to do with the way we live on this planet, the way we have created our societies. The thing is to A, understand, B, acknowledge that we have a problem. One of the things that dismays me no end is the fact that we are unwilling to even acknowledge that there is an issue, that there is a problem. And when the majority of parents and teachers, because when I say parents, I include teachers as much, because you can't separate the two. So when the majority of parents and teachers are fully convinced that everything is hunky-dory, where do you go with it? The child suffers, yes, and suffers from a very narrow, harsh, utilitarian schooling system. But the child cannot complain. The child comes and complains to the average parent. I'm not talking about the parent who's himself or herself gone through this anguish of schooling and parenting and has come to light. I'm not talking about such parents, but a minuscule of such parents, a small handful of such people. But the majority, but the parents and teachers who fill up our schools everywhere, for them, this is it. And if the child comes and, if at all the child comes to the parent and says that, "Dad, Mom, I have a problem with the school," we will send the child right back to school with a moral lecture, a very loving, well-intentioned lecture. That, schools are good for you and this is what will help you create a future for yourself and all that. a utilitarian spiel. The fact of the matter is the child really and truly happy? And this question itself is difficult for most people to ask because we don't know what happiness is. What makes a child happy? We don't know that. I've spoken to so many parents when I was active in education. I used to spend a lot of time talking to parents and teachers and various parts of the country and the world, actually. I've done this in India, I've done this in the UK, and I've done this in the US. And I found the same thing everywhere. Our system is fine. And children, when you pointedly ask them what is happiness, what makes a child happy, it's very vague. What is happiness? A child plays well and runs around, eats well, and grows up well. And hello, what's happiness? It's also because, are we willing to look at this, that as human beings, as human society, we haven't really looked at happiness. We have looked at gratification. We have looked at pleasures, the pleasures of the flesh, the pleasures of the senses, in rarer cases, pleasures of the mind, but we haven't looked at happiness. How many states do you think talk about happiness on a large scale? Bhutan, I think.
Bhutan does. Instead of GDP, they talk about gross national happiness index.
That's a huge step forward.
Yeah.
Why isn't this being done everywhere else?
Yeah.
People say that Bhutan is a small state. You can perhaps afford to do it. But okay, is it a question of scales then, or is it a question of priorities, understanding what human beings are all about? So are we as human beings, are we conscious? Have we addressed these deeper questions? And then there are many people who say, no, we don't have the time to address deeper questions. And hey, let's be practical. In other words, let's be utilitarian. But then what are human beings all about if we don't address these deeper questions that actually gnaw away at our soul? What are we talking about? So parenting starts with that, Kunal. And I deliberately go that deep down because there are no superficial solutions to parenting. You can't fix parenting at the cosmetic level. There's no cosmetic fix. Let's say there's no cosmetic fix. To truly resolve this whole schooling and parenting issue, we have to go deeper down. And where does parenting start really? It starts at home. The parents and the kid, or the kids, right? School comes later. So what happens at home with these 3 or 4 or 5 individuals, the father, the mother, and the children? What happens here determines what happens there, that level which we call schooling. So unless it happens here first, it can't happen here. And only when it happens here at schooling does it happen at the next level, which is the university, then society, our corporate world, our political world. So everything gets impacted. But if it doesn't happen here, do you seriously think it's going to happen here? Do you seriously think we're going to have a political solution or a social solution, any kind of a corporate solution to our woes? No, I don't think so. It has to start at home. So parenting starts at home. And our platform, the platform we are talking about, you and I and Puneet and our gang is talking about, is addressing this issue of parenting, which is an all-important issue, which is going to be an all-important and even more critical issue, to address it at the level where it matters the most, the home. So our platform is going to address this question in that environment that we call home. The father, the mother, and the children. The child or the children. then school. Because I don't blame the schools for what they are, because the schools exist and thrive because of the choices made here in the home, inside the home. Once parents sitting in the family, in that little place you call home, and the father and the mother, even before the children, the father and the mother decide that I want a different kind of an education, a different kind of a future for my child or my children. And this is how we are going to define it. Because is there anything more personal or intimate to you than your own children? And we spend so much of time and energy and consciousness in defining our business goals and our corporate goals. What about the goals we set with our children? What kind of future do we want to give them? And all of us complain about it. Everyone is complaining today. What kind of a future are we giving to our children? Where are we going with this? Or why not address it seriously where at the level where it matters the most, at the only level where you can do something about it directly as parents. You can't do much about it as social individuals. The scale is too large as parents. So our platform for this new kind of parenting, or actually I don't even want to say new kind of parenting. This is the only parenting that should be. This is age-old parenting. So when the father and the mother sit together and map out the child's future, not in utilitarian terms, but in evolutionary terms, that is the breakthrough we want. And our platform is dedicated to that and that alone. From a conscious, systematic shift from the utilitarian to the evolutionary. That is the bottom line.
So, Partho, this looks like a wake up call. The parents need to have a coffee and wake up.
Smell the coffee.
Smell the coffee at least. Yeah, I think somewhere in this world where parents feel. So, the good thing is that parents care for the children. That's a very good thing. Most of them do care, at least intentionally. They might not be acting accordingly. They may not know what is right or not, but parents care. So this topic,
Question about that.
so this truly can bring home a lot of needed change in humanity, because not because parents would otherwise ever want to change themselves.
A pun intended.
Exactly. Bring it home. Yeah. This can bring change because they would want to give a better future to their kids. And in that process, they would unlearn and learn.
If I may interrupt you, not a better future, a different future.
Yeah.
Because if you say better and reduced, better future, then you're continuing the same line.
It has to be disruptive. It has to be disruptive. The path has to change.
It's better.
The path has to change.
Disruptive. That's the word I like. We have to disrupt the existing patterns, and we have to start talking about a new kind of future, a future more created, a future that addresses this all important question of happiness. What is happiness?
Yeah, and even
Because happiness is so deeply involved with fulfillment. So again, shift from the utilitarian and the practical, to the evolutionary.
yeah, these are, I mean, very deep questions. What makes a child happy? What's our purpose of life? Rather than continuing in the current system, which sort of trains you for what to think, what to cram, what to remember, versus how to think. I mean,
Think of the word school itself. Schooling the mind.
yeah.
Schooling.
So it ought to be. We need to learn, and this is the problem which kids face when they move out of home and go to university or later, because all their lives they were guarded by their parents at home. Not they were just cramming things in school, and when they actually go to the corporate world or a competitive world, suddenly they are full of anxiety, depression, and challenges because they've not really developed to deal with the real world problems, or they've not got the maturity they ought to have had. to live in the world and evolve. We have actually, rather than schooling them, we've put them in the box. We've constrained them so much throughout the evolution, throughout their
In
development.
fact, I've always maintained this, that instead of helping or enabling them to evolve,
Yeah.
we've actually put a brake on their evolution as human beings.
Yeah.
We haven't allowed them to evolve as human beings at all.
Yeah. And some of the classic mistakes are comparing their kids to other kids.
Yes, comparison, that's
And
the seed of competitiveness.
that's what social media thrives on as well, which has made things worse in the last couple of decades.
And now comparison has become mindless. And I do speak to children even now, and I find it's a mindless comparison
And comparison is,
and mindless emulation.
when my kid gets 99%, neighbor's kid gets 99.1%, why is there a competition at all?
And my question is 99% itself is completely meaningless.
Exactly. So the measure has to change.
So we have to come to a point where we can, with confidence, say this, that this grading and marking system is completely meaningless. There's nothing whatever to do with education or the growth of a child or the happiness of a child.
Yeah. And we keep believing in such fictitious numbers throughout our life in the future, the
Yes.
GDP, the economic growth, this and that, which are, if you take just a step back, you realize that the problem is not that the world doesn't have enough resources. The problem is that we are not allocating it appropriately. Rich are getting richer, poor is getting poorer. The system, capitalism, favors it that way. Every 5 years you have a boom, then 2 years you have a bust. You have the cycles continue because everyone is aligning in the system, just following the system blindly, without mindfulness, without questioning it, without understanding.
And think about it. All this begins with the school.
Exactly.
And all this leads back to the school. This is a loop that has to be broken.
Yeah.
The kind of society we have creates the kind of schools we have, and the kind of schools we have creates, in turn, the kind of society we have. So this is a vicious loop that has to be broken.
In that context, now that highlights a problem. Hopefully, some parents may see the intent behind or may see the problem itself. I want to address one point today, at least one point today, which is an acknowledged problem among most, if not all, parents, which is that they have a problem that their kids do too much screen time.
Yes.
Their kids are stuck with phones or TVs or games or
Yes.
computers, etc., iPads. Now, while the parents want their kids not to spend so much time on screens, wearing the thick glasses and spending 4 hours every day, 2 hours, 5 hours, etc., but what they don't realize is the root cause of the problem. And I'll bring you into this in a second. I just want to make one point, that where did the screen time start? It started with the parents' convenience. When they wanted to outsource, they didn't want to spend time with the kids. They could not give an environment to the kids where the kids are spending time doing activities, going in nature, playing, learning, reading. And they just say, okay, you watch this cartoon for 1 hour so I can do my own things. You watch this for 30 minutes while you eat. Kids do not open their mouth unless parents put a screen in front of them.
Yes.
Now, this starts there. And then second thing is, parents themselves are on the screens and expecting their kids not to be on the screens. Right? Now, screen time is a big issue. Everyone acknowledges.
There was a classic experience I had.
Yes.
I was walking through Central Park a few months ago in New York, and I actually took a photograph. I mean,
Yeah, from a phone. Yeah.
yes, because it was classic. There was this stroller. There was this baby sitting in it with a screen fixed to it.
Wow. Wow.
And the mother and I think the mother's friend, two of them sitting on the bench right behind with their phones. Both of them absorbed in the phones, and the baby there in the stroller absorbed in its screen. And I said, wow, this is it.
Yeah.
This is what's happening.
Yeah.
And so I made myself a bit, I moved away and very discreetly I took a picture. Because, you're not allowed to do that. But it was such a classic scenario. Yeah, do about it. So, you know where the problem begins? With the book, the written word.
Yeah.
Ages ago.
I know. I remember. Socrates also said this, that
When we took the children away from their natural
learning,
sense environment, the natural senses, and brought them to the written word, the text,
yeah,
then you have the screen. A natural progression.
yeah, just more engaging, more addictive,
Yes.
and
more artificial.
more artificial. So let's spend maybe a few minutes, if we can, on this, on potential solutions for the screen time issue that parents face. Where do we start? How do we change?
So the problem is not the screen issue.
Yeah,
That you can, whatever you do to wean them away from screens would be symptomatic. You have to go to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is that there are no options. We have to create options, alternatives to the screen. And alternatives that have to be as interesting, as engaging for the child as the screens are. So we haven't done that, and we have to do that. We have to create an environment at home which is so rich and creative and engaging that the child doesn't feel the need for these artificial devices. Unless we do that, we cannot resolve this issue. And whatever we do here will be symptomatic. So not like the headache you have, and I give you a tablet for the headache, a pill for the headache, and it's gone, but it comes back again because why are you getting the headache? So here again, it's the parents, and I say this advisedly. The parents, even before the children are born, have to think of alternatives and create alternatives in the environment, which means when the child is born, that child is born into a different environment. What kind of environment are our children born into these days? The moment the child is born, it's born into this environment, screens everywhere. So what do you expect them to take to? So this is the problem that I'm talking about, that we need to address, that we will address through this platform, that it starts with the parents. The children are just victims.
sure. May I just interrupt and ask, can you, for the interest of our audience, suggest some alternate ideas how to make better, more engaging, non-device world?
There are several.
Suggest a few, please. Yeah.
But I don't go there first.
Okay.
Because since we are having an initial conversation,
Okay.
I always start with the more fundamental question. How do the parents engage themselves? I am asking, how do the parents engage themselves? Think of some parents you know. Yeah, how do they engage themselves?
They're busy working. They are running day-to-day life.
Working lives, of course, but once you come back home, you're not working in one. There are a few people come back home and not work.
Yeah.
They carry their work home. Most parents I have seen carry in one form or the other.
Yeah.
And you see, it's also very important. You may not need to physically carry work back, but you're carrying it in your head.
In your head. Yeah. So they would typically either spend times on the screen themselves, looking at Netflix, watching social media, looking at the phones, or mindlessly.
Thank you. That's it. That's where the whole thing
Problem starts.
Yes. Now, how do you, and you're right, most parents would do that. Now, That's what the parents are doing habitually,
Yeah.
right? That's the way they live.
Correct.
And then a child comes into this environment. What else do you expect? Do you think parents will change overnight once the child is born? No. They can. If they start discussing this, probably 6 months before the child is born. One of the things I've maintained is one of the things I just talk to parents about when I used to be more active in education is that parenting does not start when your child is born. It starts at least 6 months before your child is born. Like there are those who say it starts probably before your child is conceived. And there's a whole branch of education, prenatal education. So really, I mean, if you want to fix the problem, you have to start from the root. I call it radical parenting. Radical from the word root. So unless parenting becomes radical, in other words, unless parenting goes to the roots, we're not going to have much of a change. It's going to be the same thing. Now, as we say, change the bottle, the stuff inside will be the same.
Yeah. Just a
Old
different.
wine in new bottles or different bottles. We have to address the root issue. So we are talking radical parenting. We are talking radical parenting. We are talking transformative parenting. We are talking enlightened parenting. We are talking conscious parenting, mindful parenting. All these are different ways of saying the same thing. And once a group of parents go through this, I call it the radical shift from utilitarianism to evolution, from the utilitarian to the evolutionary. Once a group of parents do that, then these parents become empowered enough to create their own schools, which would be radical schools. Schools which would be evolutionary. So you have a group of parents who create their own school, evolutionary school. Then you have a whole lot of kids coming out of the schools who will be very different people. I would call them radical human beings who live at the root, and they are sustained at the root, nourished at the roots. So you have children being nourished at the roots, and then they grow up in these schools. Imagine what they will do when they step out into the world, what kind of university education they will want or have, what kind of futures they will dream up for themselves, what kind of priorities and values will they have. Just think. Endless possibilities. And think the other way, the utilitarian schooling. Tell me one thing that has changed over the last 50 years in the thinking of the children, in the thinking of the teacher, on the curriculum, in the content that we teach them. Tell me one thing that has changed over 50 years. I tell you, nothing. Additions, yes. Change? No. Radical changes? Absolutely not.
That's a very meaningful initiative, Partho, to try and bring this together, and hopefully for people who are aware of the problem, or who can at least become aware after hearing this kind of conversation. Hopefully they could benefit from whatever content and platform we're putting together, and possibly scale the
Yes.
distribution to.
And we're not just, as you asked, and probably we'll address this in our future conversations, but we will also be bringing a lot of activities for the parents to bring about this kind of radical change in parenting. And the question you asked, what do parents do at home to create this other kind of environment? Yes, there are activities for it, and we will bring that to the parents, and we will help them to do it, at least to the extent that they need help.
Yeah, hopefully this would be very inspiring and should bring about some incremental change, which hopefully scales over time, and much needed initiative for the hour. And I hope parents who are listening, watching, would look forward to more content. And
Yes, even if a handful of parents start doing that, our job is done.
yeah, I agree. And we welcome any questions, problems, challenges, suggestions from any of the audience watching this. Feel free to reach out to us. Surely you can reach out by just commenting in the section below the video, or if you know any of us, reach out offline, and we'll try to cover those topics in the upcoming sessions.
And if there are questions that they bring to us, and we'd be happy to address the questions directly.
Sure. And we're looking forward to making the platform more interactive, where this could be a two-way conversation also. So we'll make that happen in due course. So that's a great initiative, Partho. Thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you. Thank you for talking to me about it.
Sure.
We need to share this a lot more.
Yeah. Thank you, Partho.